The key to success on the field and in your backyard is a comprehensive game plan. So if you're building a fence or a deck this year, trust a Turkstra coach to design, quote, or order the right materials for your project. Visit a Turkstra Lumber near you to learn more.
From the Ticats Audio Network, this is the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker.
Welcome back to the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker. We're rolling out of the bye week here. CFL Week 15, Ticats 3-9. And after this bye week, back at the last stretch of the season. Coach, it's great to be back with you on the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker. First of all, how was your bye week?
Let's go with awesome.
That's
great. Awesome. It was, yeah. The body clock doesn't stop. You still wake up at 4 a.m., but you don't have to get up. I think that's the biggest difference, Luke.
That's great. I actually made it out to your neck of the woods, your original neck of the woods, out in Washington State for a wedding this weekend. Beautiful and actually not rainy, but now we have the rain here in Hamilton with us, so that's just the way it goes.
Always awesome to get out. It's green, clean air out there out west.
Amazing, just absolutely luscious. It was honestly a beautiful, beautiful place. Mostly in Bellevue when we were there, but awesome trip.
East side.
Right. Coach, let's get right into it here. You've got you're coming out of the Labor Day Classic, which was probably most people would probably say a low point for the season as far as injuries and where that sets the Ticats in the standings as you move into the last stretch of the season here, especially at the QB position. First, I guess I take it that the bye week was pretty good timing as far as helping out you and your staff's ability to evaluate and the team's ability to heal, specific to the quarterback position.
Yeah, we've been, injuries hasn't. It's definitely part of the game, but it hasn't been, very favorable for us. And it's not that. It's just at the key positions. And when you have your two people that are capable of starting, and people that you're counting on to go out, it's something that is always a possibility, but it's not that you're prepared for it. And meaning you're not going to give your 3 and 4 quarterbacks generally very many reps, outside of maybe a scout team every now and again, and maybe handing off the ball an inside run. There's just not a lot of room for growth, as obviously you're giving those reps to the number 2 quarterback. So it's hard to get them prepared, but at the end of the day, they kick the ball off anyway. And like I always say, we're no excuses, and we're built on worrying about controllable factors. And that was the hand we're dealt. And I thought we hung in there real strong. And it was a football game in the fourth quarter. And I think it was an 11-8 game, and we had the wind at our back, and some unforeseen things happened. And definitely disappointed. But when it comes to the quarterback position, it doesn't really matter. It's which football team I've ever been on. When they've went well, the football team has a better chance of high achievement. Yeah.
What changes specific to your role, you and your staff, your coaches' roles with a young quarterback? Is the week of prep different when you've got a new guy without experience going in?
I would say not terribly different. Obviously, you scale things back in the majority of cases, as we did, and you try to prepare them the best you can for what you anticipate seeing, but there's always those wrinkles. And for the first time, when they're seeing him full speed in the game, sometimes you're able to make those adjustments quickly, and sometimes it takes a little longer. But in the meantime, there's a lot of other things going on with special teams and defense, while you're trying to figure things out. So I'd say the prep week remains relatively the same. But the way you approach it with the quarterback and maybe the play selection is a little bit different.
Coach, after this bye week here, does it feel to you, is it time that you draw a line in the sand? Like, is it now you're going to sort of looking to re-identify your 2022 Hamilton Tiger Cats? Or is it more of the same? You're just going to continue to work? Is it you're going to continue to work away and be as good as you can at the things that you've always been working on?
I think it's a combination of both. We're obviously not going to stay exactly the same, but so a lot of it is just predicated on injury status, to be honest with you, right? if Matthew or Dane are able to go, that's going to change. It doesn't matter what line you draw. It's going to be a different game than if Jalen and Jamie, go. So, we're never going to stay the same. What we've done so far in the win-loss column hasn't been good enough. But there's plenty that we have done that has been good enough. We just have to find ways consistently in all three phases to put it together for the end result, and that's to get into the win column. There is no moral victories, but I think, changing everything all around sometimes is an overkill, and it appeases everybody but the actual player and the football team because they're the ones that play. And as a confused player doesn't play fast. And so moving people, putting in, that, but you also at the same point, to your comment, you don't want to stay the same. And that's not always personnel. It's not always play calls. It's not always that. So we'll adjust our practice just a little bit and go from there.
Do you have any memories as a player, seasons like this? I mean, I kind of think back to 2015, 2017, we were sort of flirting with the playoffs at sort of this last stretch of the season here. And, what was your mentality to a player, and how does that relate as a coach? I mean, in a sense, I feel like the burden falls on the coaching staff. As a player, you kind of have the freedom to just say, certainly I have maybe a lesser circle of control, so I can focus in on those things that are mine to control, those things that are mine to be good at. And I can just go out there and play free. As a coach, maybe is the pressures mounting? Are they different than a player in this point of the season?
That's a good question. I think everybody would likely answer it just a little bit different. Pressure usually comes, and you've heard me say this, Luke, when you're not prepared. And I feel like, as a staff, we're prepared. And our job is to get the players prepared as possible, and the players' job is to always perform and on a consistent basis. So, to be honest with you, I do understand the business. I understand the sports entertainment value. I understand the passion of the CFL fans. That's what I love about the league. But really, in fairness, and that's why I love doing this show with you, is you can attest. I know I say it often, but whether you agree or disagree, it's about focusing and refocusing. And the outside noise is part of the entertainment. But it really has no bearing on us calling Kansas State cube and you executing versus press man versus a high corner versus a cut coverage and a high halfback. It really has no bearing on it. Our job is to prepare you for that moment and make sure it's not too big for you. And the outside stuff doesn't really enter in. And so I think it's actually tougher nowadays on players because the outside is part of how they're raised. And it is there, and they have to choose whether to drown it out, defend it, and everybody handles it different. But from a coaching perspective, I know that it has no bearing on our meeting tomorrow and what my job is and what the coach's job is. And it's really not any bigger than that.
Is the right answer, right is a strong word, are you more inclined to, at this point in the season, sort of, squeeze the club a little tighter, double down on film study, really, really ensure, an adherence to sort of your culture and the discipline of that, being on time, being early, and I know they're not totally opposites, but maybe are you more inclined almost to say to cut loose a little bit and say, listen, guys, like if you're gonna come in here all tensed up and all tight and say, oh no, like the playoffs, we got to win to get into the playoffs, then you're not going to be great. You got to cut loose and be free. I mean, and those two things, in my opinion, they're maybe not totally opposites, but they maybe do look a little different if you committed one way or another. What about you? Which one resonates more with sort of where your team is and what they need?
That's a great question because I think it varies not just year to year, but week to week. you know how our meetings are run, and only, I apologize for all the listeners where I always reference those things, but very rarely are we going to be tight. But we're not going to be not address the elephants in the room. We're going to coach hard. We're going to demand excellence. We're going to teach them. We're going to critique. But we're also going to understand that we're dealing with people, not robots. Yes, you are players. You sign a contract, but you're people first. And it's okay for people to laugh, even if nothing is funny from the outside. There's a human element to the game to get people to perform at their best. And that doesn't mean you're not taking things serious, but, if, I'm going to take a drill sergeant mentality, and I will do that at times if that's what the situation calls for. But you also got to be authentic and be who you are and know that no matter what approach you take, militant, laid back, there couldn't be contrasting styles, whether it's a Ken Austin style or a June Jones style or anything in between. None of it guarantees a victory. It just doesn't. The players make the plays and the coaches coach. And when I start thinking as a coach that I'm the difference maker, it's my play call, it's my environment, it's my culture, boy, look out. Because it's players like yourself and all your great teammates that created the environment that results in the culture. And that's what I'm most proud of and what's going to be sustainable for as long as I'm here and long after, because that's how we're built. The play on the field is always what it's about. It's always about execution. That's how the wins come. The most critical stat is the win or the loss. And we do other critical stats that we think contribute to that most critical stat. But I just know whatever form it is of leadership, none of it guarantees victory.
Yeah, wow. Great insight, Coach. And it always resonates with me. Something that you've said a couple times on the show and before this show is that it's so interesting that sometimes a bad week of practice or a good week of practice, they don't end up predicting the win. Like I always found that to be so interesting as a player, because it is true. On a personal level and as a team level, there's just days where it's just a sloppy product on a Wednesday on the practice field on a day 2 or whatever. And for some reason, you just go have a great game. And I was always interested in the why, but also just kind of, fascinated in the fact and just the what, that just is real and exists. And you're right. I mean, a great culture starts with, I agree, the players. But there's a framework that you and coaches like yourself, instill from the start that sort of it lays a track for the guys to jump onto. And yeah, I mean, I've seen a whole array of it, and what I do remember well from especially 2019 and years where you were around as our OC or receiver coach, whatever, is that, or sorry, DC and receiver coach, and I felt like that you have a particular gift for that combination of discipline and attention to details while not tightening up the locker room, while not having such a militant, detailed approach that it's sort of dry and unemotional. Like, the best football is done when you're having fun playing it. And so, boy, that would be my message to my former teammates and to the new members of this team, is that you guys, man, if you don't have a chance at the playoffs if you're not going to have fun working to get there, right?
It's well said, and I think that is the environment that. Standing in front of the football team every day, you set the tone.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's set, in the subcultures thereafter by the coordinators and then also the position coach. But you have an opportunity to set the tone for practice. And I think what's so unique about football is that unlike, I would almost say, any other sport, I've always was careful. I don't know if you ever picked up on this. I was always careful to say that, we all had a great practice, because it's very rare that in 20 plus years that I have been along with this league, or even if I think back to when I started paying attention to those things, that all 3 phases had an awesome practice. It's usually the offense clicked. But if the offense is clicking, that means the defense is probably giving up something. And if the defense, especially in competition periods, if the defense is winning our team competition period, it means you guys aren't scoring on offense. And if one person drops a punt in practice and then everybody else on every other phase is kicking their tail and busting it, and I get up in front of the football team and say, we got to pick it up on special teams. Well, I'm framing that off of one drop punt that could affect the outcome of a game, but yet everybody else did the right thing. And so it's just interesting. And I learned that as a player where they'd say, a coach may get in front and say, hey, great practice today. And I'm thinking, boy, we stunk on defense. And it just very rarely applies to everybody.
That's funny.
And so I think you divide it.
Yeah, the offensive head coach, from an offensive background says, oh, great practice today. And you're thinking, oh,
yeah,
no.
and I'm thinking, like, who's he talking to?
Right. That's great stuff. Coach, let's get into a fan question here.
Sure.
This one is from Chuck Monachino, and he says, Coach, with the NFL cutbacks taking place, are you actively looking at those released players, and if so, what positions? Good luck Saturday. Oski Wee Wee from Chuck.
Awesome. Thanks for the question, Chuck. The answer is, we always look forward to this time of year, especially if you're talking the personnel department, because there's players that they've been tracking. So the answer is absolutely. The direct answer is absolutely yes. And if you're asking what position, sorry for the blanket statement or straddle the fence answer, but it's all positions. Like, there's just a unique thing where this is a game of competition. And the reason that, Luke, you took somebody's spot. Somebody went home, whether it was an injury or not. When they decided to keep me, they decided not to keep somebody else. And that's just the world and what you sign up for in this professional football. And it's not personal. It's because there is a game of injuries. If Luke goes down, who's replacing him? You can't always be reactive. You got to be proactive on some of these situations. So I do truly mean that we're looking at all positions. And that would start around NFL cutdown time every year. And everybody knows it because there's all of a sudden new faces in the locker room. And it's a little bit different, but it's always an exciting time because you get a chance to ID some of the players that you may invite to training camp, or they may help you for the playoff and Grey Cup stretch.
Great stuff. And Chuck, thank you for the question. Fans, be sure to send your fan questions in for Coach O to gameday@ticats.ca. Include the subject, the Coach O Show, or a question for Coach O, and it might be your question that gets selected for next week's show. The Coach O Show with Luke Tasker is presented by Turkstra Lumber. Check out the project coaches at Turkstra Lumber. They can help with any part of your home renovation, from designing a deck, ordering a new front door, and many more. Learn more at TurkstraLumber.com, and be sure to send those fan questions into gameday@ticats.ca. Coach, appreciate all of your insight, and what a beautiful moment in a team's lifespan to go and try to make a difference in these last games and to win what has to be won in order to get a chance at a championship. We're excited to see you Saturday, 4 p.m. Winnipeg Blue Bombers will be at Tim Hortons Field. I'll be up there, Coach. Excited to see you, and best of luck with the week of prep.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Luke. We'll see you next week.
Another episode of the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker is in the books. Let us know your thoughts. Email us at gameday@ticats.ca. Coach O and Luke are back next week to discuss the latest from the locker room. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.